Eep! It's Courtney Barnett time. Now I know what you're probably thinking, Alex, didn't this album come out like 5 years ago? Why are you reviewing it now? And the answer to that is, Let me talk about the things that I like. Courtney Barnett is a former pizza delivery consultant and current Australian folk singer-songwriter with worldwide acclaim from critics and fans alike. A year after the initial success of her first double EP in 2014, A Sea of Split Peas, she released her debut album, Sometimes I Sit and Think, and Sometimes I Just Sit. A common theme in Barnett's music is her exploration of social anxieties and fear. This should be pretty apparent just reading through her song titles. Songs like Pedestrian at Best, Everybody Here Hates You, Crippling Self-Doubt, and A General Lack of Confidence. Yes, these are all names of songs. Courtney is never one to shy away from getting inside her own head, channeling negative emotions through stories and experiences and locations in a very interesting way. So let's get into the music. Pedestrian at Best, one of the singles from this album, is probably a good entry point for that. It is a raging anthem to Courtney's sense of imposter syndrome. With stream of consciousness type lyrics, Courtney's sense of humor really gets to shine on this song. I quite like lines like, "My internal monologue is saturated analog." And with the pounding fuzzy guitars and Courtney's shouted vocal delivery, this song sounds like Courtney getting caught in the midst of an anxiety attack or like a mental breakdown. And that's a theme for Courtney's guitar playing over a lot of this album. Wherever they get the chance to, the guitars are constantly making a scene, like the very overblown solo at the end of Kim's Caravan, or the solo on Small Poppies, which just ends with this very dejected playing, almost as if Courtney is falling apart as she's strumming, as if just having a public breakdown. What do you mean the Chick-fil-A is closed? I need my chicken sandwich. I need my chicken sandwich every night before I went to bed. My mom used to give me a chicken sandwich and tuck me in and say I was a good boy. And you're denying me this chicken sandwich. Are you saying I wasn't a good boy? Are you saying I haven't been a good boy today? Why don't you love me, chicken mommy? And then we get into one of the more interesting tracks on the album, Depreston, which is Courtney Barnett writing about her depression, but sort of channeling it through this story of her house hunting in an Australian suburb, and just her talking about her day, getting into the town, seeing some police officers arrest a shoplifter, and then just analyzing this very nuclear family 2-story house that seems to be falling apart, or at least in some sort of disrepair. It's an interesting link of negative emotion to such a specific and real experience. Courtney Barnett is talking about depression here, but she's not necessarily talking about any sort of abstract poetic sense of it. She's talking about a simple fact of her life. She was looking for a home in a place that seemed unwelcoming and unlike her. It's not necessarily a metaphor, it's a story of something that happened to her, and why it made her feel upset is kind of just plainly evident. And that makes it more real to the listener, certainly to me at least. Whenever I think of depressive moments in my life, I don't think of some sort of like abstract poetic lyricism. I think of that time after film class I just went to a hole in the wall and ate an entire Panzerotti pizza by myself while listening to Camila Cabello on these shitty overhead speakers. I don't like Camila Cabello. I had headphones and other music to listen to, but I just kind of went with it because I didn't really want to think about anything else. Courtney Barnett even goes as far to call for the destruction of the entire city of Preston at the end of the song, later clarifying that she actually likes going to Preston. It was just one of those days, you know? After that on the album, we get Dead Fox, which is an even stronger and even more interesting link between negative emotion and location. This is Courtney's song about capitalism, and at the same time, it's about driving on a highway. Dead Fox begins with a conversation about store-bought apples and the very real feeling under late capitalism of not really actually knowing what's in the food that you eat. She then draws a line between that feeling and these monolithic food delivery trucks on the highway, talking about her anxiety with driving, the roadkill on the street, and how she's afraid to sneeze lest she ends up a smear on the pavement. As far as the song is concerned, anxiety is a normal response. We live in an anxious world, a world that at many times values corporate growth over human life, a world where we have to normalize car crashes and roadkill as just background noise of an everyday event. Courtney Barnett paints a picture of late capitalism as a highway surrounded by death and shadowed by corporate leviathans, and on the chorus very cleverly uses some driving lingo as a metaphor for alienation and depersonalization. And this is what I think Courtney Barnett does best on this album, is portray intense negative feelings as a result of circumstance and environment, more often than not just being mundane occurrences in everyday life. You aren't guaranteed to find a place where you belong. You aren't meant to feel as if you have power in the world around you. And more often than not, the people you depend on don't have your best interest in mind. A more personal aspect of this gets explored on the closing song, Boxing Day Blues. And then ignoring any deeper subtext or pretensions of the music, a lot of it is just bangers. Songs like Nobody Really Cares If You Don't Go to the Party, Debbie Downer, all explore some aspect of social anxiety and concern, but really are just fun, upbeat songs with catchy choruses. And that's another layer to this album, for as much as it talks about these dark emotions, it's really just fun to listen to. And I actually did glaze over a pretty important song in the track list, the opening, Elevator Operator. My personal favorite song here, and one of my favorite set of lyrics Courtney Barnett has ever penned. It's a story song about a young man named Oliver who is upset with his work life and just has this breakthrough one day where he ditches his job and runs through the city. He meets a woman in an elevator of a skyscraper and explains to her this great joy that he has of just being able to go onto the roof of the skyscraper and look down at the people below, ending with him asking for a job as an elevator. I That's meant to say elevator operator, but for some reason in the script for this, I just wrote he asks for a job as an elevator. And outside of the story, there's a lot of admirable qualities to the song. This great tension that gets built up over these marching staccato drums and guitars, leading up to this just really satisfying sing-along chorus. Don't jump, little boy, don't jump off that roof. I brought up earlier in the review that Courtney Barnett used to be a pizza delivery driver, and I was actually reading an interview with her as prep for writing this review. I found one where she was talking about that job, saying, I really liked it. It was fun. I'd get to drive around in my car and listen to the radio. I probably drove back to the shop a bit slower than I needed to. And I think the story on the song and that anecdote is Courtney Barnett's way of saying how you have to survive through the field of chaos she paints on the rest of the album. This bleak image of modern life. Things that society seems intent on pushing us towards, success in business, a small suburban lifestyle, aren't necessarily guaranteed to make us happy in the end, and that you need to find happiness in the smaller things, in the simpler things, being comfortable in your environment and finding time wherever you can to do what makes you happy. I think there's a lot of value in what Courtney Barnett writes on this album to anybody who is concerned or confused about aspects of modern life. While there are some songs that stand out to me less than others that I didn't necessarily go into too much in this review, I think Courtney is hitting on a lot of stuff that certainly resonates with a lot of people's outlook on the current state of the world right now. On top of that, this album offers a lot of really catchy, fun choruses, lyrics that are consistently funny, witty, and sharply observant of a lot of things most people would overlook. And on top of that, it's a lot of fun to listen to, even though it touches on some real emotional darkness. This isn't really a dark album. It's fun and it's inviting. If I had to give this album a letter grade, I would say it's an A, maybe an A+. I really enjoy it, and I highly recommend to anybody who's interested in hearing some of the more interesting rock that came out in the last decade. Lastly, I just want to explain what this video is. I haven't really been feeling up to the task of making videos, and I don't really feel like I need to explain why. Also, if you're a regular here and observant, you would notice that I'm in a different location now. I moved, or moreover, my parents moved, and I was along for the ride. So yeah, I've had a lot on my mind these past 5 months. I used to make these music review videos where I'd go over like all the new music that came out in the past month, and then they were long and kind of rambly, and I was never really satisfied with them, if I'm being honest. I thought I'd do sort of a different format where I just come on here whenever I want and review whatever I want, just an album that I think is interesting, that I want to bring to my audience's attention, and I want to say a few words about. So hopefully you liked this. If you did, uh, thumb up, subscribe, bell, comment, whatever you end up doing. Just honestly, thank you so much for listening. My name is Alex Mitro, and you've been tuned in to 93.5 Friendship Station. I hope you have a lovely day.